Beneath the rolling hills of Kentucky lies an underground world stretching for nearly 50 miles. Narrow passages branch into larger tunnels, hidden chambers disappear into darkness, and countless intersections make even experienced explorers lose their sense of direction. Workers expanded much of this remarkable network over many decades, yet one question continues puzzling historians today. Who first understood this enormous maze well enough to create a map that others could actually follow? The answer remains surprisingly uncertain. Before we begin this journey below the surface, tell us where you're watching from, and let's return to where the story truly begins. The story begins long before the first miner struck limestone with a hammer. Millions of years earlier, rainwater slowly filtered through cracks in Kentucky's bedrock. As that water absorbed carbon dioxide from the soil above, it became slightly acidic. Over countless centuries, it dissolved the limestone little by little, carving narrow passages beneath the landscape. Those tiny openings gradually widened into caves, underground streams, and enormous chambers that remained hidden beneath forests and farmland. From the surface, nothing looked unusual. Gentle hills covered the region, while rivers flowed through quiet valleys. Few people realized an entirely different landscape existed below their feet. Underground, nature had created miles of winding passages without a single human hand touching the rock. Early settlers eventually stumbled upon cave entrances while exploring the countryside. Some openings appeared beside rivers. Others emerged along steep hillsides where erosion had exposed the limestone beneath. Curious explorers carried simple lanterns inside, expecting small caverns. Instead, many discovered tunnels stretching far beyond the reach of daylight. News spread quickly. At first, these underground spaces attracted adventurers, scientists, and local residents eager to explore something mysterious. Before long, however, people began noticing something far more valuable than the caves themselves. Kentucky's limestone region contained important mineral deposits, including saltpeter, a material essential for producing gunpowder during the early 19th century. Extracting those minerals demanded reliable access to deeper sections of the caves. Narrow natural passages often prevented workers from transporting supplies or moving heavy loads efficiently. Instead of abandoning the difficult sections, crews started modifying what nature had already created. Small openings were widened, low ceilings were cut higher, sharp bends were straightened wherever possible. Separate chambers became connected through newly excavated links, allowing people and equipment to move much more easily beneath the surface. The objective was never to build an underground city from nothing. The goal was to transform scattered natural spaces into a practical working environment. Every new connection shortened travel time, improved access to valuable resources, and reduced the effort required to move materials back toward the surface. As more tunnels joined together, the underground landscape became increasingly difficult to understand. Routes that had once been simple now branched in several directions. Fresh excavations crossed older passages. Dead ends appeared beside newly opened corridors. Workers entering the network for the first time could no longer depend upon memory alone. Experienced crews learned familiar routes through repetition, but newcomers faced a very different challenge. One wrong turn could send someone into unfamiliar passages that looked almost identical to dozens of others nearby. Underground, every intersection resembled the last. The growing network had solved one problem by improving access. It quietly created another by making navigation far more complicated than anyone had expected. Digging new connections required strength and determination. Finding the correct path through an underground maze demanded an entirely different kind of skill, one that would shape the future of the entire network. Natural caves provided the starting point, but they could not support large-scale mining on their own. Many passages were too narrow for equipment, some ended abruptly, and others flooded after heavy rain. If the underground network was going to support years of continuous work, it needed to function as one organized system instead of a collection of isolated caves. If you're enjoying this forgotten chapter of engineering history, consider subscribing because the next stage uncovers the mystery that historians are still trying to solve today. The first priority was improving access. Crews carefully enlarged existing passages where solid limestone allowed safe excavation. Workers removed loose rock, widened tight corners, and created enough space for people carrying tools, timber, and supplies to move without constant delays. Every improvement made the underground journey a little faster. Attention soon shifted toward connecting separate sections. Instead of following random directions, experienced foremen selected locations where new tunnels could join existing chambers with the shortest possible excavation. Those links reduced travel distances and created alternate routes whenever part of the system became blocked by rockfall or flooding. Moving materials presented another challenge. Carrying heavy loads by hand through twisting passages wasted valuable time and exhausted workers before the real job even began. To solve that problem, narrow gauge tracks gradually appeared inside wider sections of the network. Small carts transported stone, equipment, timber, and extracted minerals much more efficiently than human labor alone. Fresh air proved equally important. Deep underground, natural airflow rarely reached every corner of the expanding system. Builders opened carefully positioned ventilation shafts wherever geology allowed, encouraging air to circulate through the connected passages. In some areas, simple doors directed airflow toward active work zones, while reducing stale air inside abandoned sections. Water constantly threatened progress. Underground streams occasionally flooded newly excavated tunnels, while rain filtered through cracks high above the workers. Drainage channels guided unwanted water toward lower areas where it could flow away naturally instead of collecting inside busy passages. Keeping the tunnels dry protected both the workforce and the infrastructure supporting daily operations. Timber supports reinforced unstable locations where solid limestone alone could not guarantee long-term safety. Experienced crews inspected those areas regularly, replacing damaged beams before serious problems developed. Stable rock required little attention, weaker ground demanded constant observation. As the years passed, the underground landscape became increasingly sophisticated. Supply routes, work areas, drainage systems, ventilation passages, and transportation corridors gradually blended into a single interconnected network stretching for miles beneath Kentucky. What had once been scattered natural caves now operated like an organized industrial environment hidden below the surface. Success created an unexpected consequence. Every new connection added another choice at the next intersection. Familiar routes multiplied into a maze of nearly identical passages where even experienced workers occasionally stopped to confirm their direction. Remembering the correct path became almost as important as excavating the tunnels themselves. Building the underground network required practical engineering. Explaining how people eventually mapped such a confusing maze with limited surveying equipment remains one of the most fascinating questions in the entire story. By the time the tunnel system reached its greatest size, moving through it had become a challenge of memory as much as distance. A miner could spend an entire shift underground without seeing daylight. New passages crossed older ones, side tunnels disappeared into darkness, and familiar landmarks often looked almost identical. Without reliable directions, the network risked becoming as dangerous as it was productive. Yet detailed maps eventually appeared. That fact continues attracting attention because creating those drawings was far more difficult than drawing roads across open countryside. Surveyors could not simply climb a nearby hill for a better view. Every measurement had to be collected inside narrow passages where visibility ended only a few feet beyond a lantern's glow. The work usually began at a known entrance. Survey teams established fixed reference points before carrying compasses, measuring chains, notebooks, and simple sighting instruments deeper into the tunnels. Progress happened one section at a time. Distances were recorded carefully, directions were checked repeatedly, and every major chamber became another reference point for the survey. Accuracy depended on repetition rather than speed. Teams frequently measured the same section more than once, comparing independent results before adding another passage to the growing map. Small mistakes multiplied quickly underground. A single incorrect angle could place an entire branch of the network where no tunnel actually existed. Experienced miners contributed knowledge that instruments alone could never provide. They remembered which routes flooded after storms, which chambers connected through narrow openings, and which passages eventually joined older excavations. Surveyors combined those observations with recorded measurements, gradually transforming countless individual journeys into one organized drawing. Even so, an important question remains unanswered. Historians know maps existed because later records refer to them, later surveys resemble earlier work, and mining operations clearly depended upon organized navigation. What remains uncertain is exactly who produced the earliest comprehensive version covering the expanding network. Some original documents disappeared, others survived only as copies, and many working sketches were probably discarded once cleaner versions replaced them. That missing documentation has encouraged decades of speculation. Some people imagine secret organizations or forgotten government projects. The historical evidence points somewhere less dramatic but equally fascinating. Large mapping projects often involved many surveyors working across long periods, making it difficult to credit a single individual after records vanished or became scattered. Modern technology has confirmed that many early measurements were surprisingly reliable. Laser scanning, digital models, and geological surveys frequently match the routes documented long before electronic equipment existed. Those results suggest the original survey teams understood the underground landscape far better than many people once believed. The greatest mystery, therefore, is not whether accurate maps existed. They clearly did. The real mystery is how much of the earlier surveying story disappeared before anyone realized its historical importance. Some places become famous because everyone can see them. Others leave their greatest stories hidden beneath the ground. Kentucky's tunnel network reminds us that remarkable engineering achievements can outlast the industries that created them. If you enjoy uncovering forgotten history, subscribe and join us for the next journey into the past.